Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be taking a look at a really weird one that I hope to go over with you guys and kind of talk about because I think it's bad. Like my initial hunch on this was that it was bad, and after playing with it and trying to experiment with it and seeing how it works, like I kind of feel like it's still bad. Um, and we'll talk about it together. Let's go over it. Let's read the stats on the item. We'll talk about the effects and why I think it's not really necessarily the best ring out there. It might have some uses, but for the most part, I think it's probably going to sabotage you more than it's going to help you. Yeah. So first off, it has resistances. So it comes with 37.5% fire and 37.5% poison res. Those are implicits and cannot be increased. It also has a life on kill of 14 to 23 life on kill, which isn't really that amazing. It's not a lot of life on kill, and I feel like this ring is... we're going to have to do a lot of math with this ring, and I'm going to show you kind of like what I mean by life on kill is very low and probably not very good. So first off, taking a look at our life that we currently have, 5,594, which I'm missing a bunch because I don't have all my equipment on, and like I think I took my shroud off. I'm just using like yeah. I am missing a lot of life though from various pieces of equipment. I'm missing 721 from there and so forth and so on, and I'm pretty sure I've got a ring that's got. Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if that's the right way. It's okay. It doesn't matter. So let's pretend I have at least 7,000 life because I'm pretty close to 7,000, and I have 23 life on kill. Right? So 7,000 divided by 23 is 304 kills, roughly, to fill up my life. Does that kind of like display how useless that is? Because I think it is rather useless, right? So not exactly the most amazing thing out there. Moving on to the next one, we've got the bonus attack speed, which is nice. 22.5% bonus attack speed if it's a greater affix, and of course it's a little bit less than that if it's not. And if you masterwork it, that's going to go a lot higher. That exists in pool number 1, by the way. All gear-based like attack speed like that is in pool 1. Pool 2 is things like accelerating, ferocity, and so forth and so on. Those are in pool 2. You can get 2 different 100% bonuses, 100% in pool 1 and 100% in pool 2 for a total of 200%. So if you get 200% bonus, you can attack really, really fast. It also has a movement speed bonus after killing an enemy, which is 23% cap. And at least it's not after killing an elite, but it's still pretty terrible because it's after killing an enemy. I kind of see what they're going here with here because I think this is supposed to be like a poison slash, like jaguar item or something. We also have the Nourishment ability, which is a passive. Nourishment is a really nice passive that gives you a pretty huge amount of multiplier of 3% times per point up to, like a pretty high number. As you can see, I currently have 3 in it as well, which is giving me 9%. And if I throw on the ring with an additional 2, that's going to bring it up by 3.6. So I'm going to be at 15%. You can potentially get a greater affix on this, and you can masterwork it up tremendously to get probably, I want to say around like 8 would be the cap. I have triple masterworked a couple items similarly, and I was able to get around 8, so that's what I'm going to assume. And of course, you could get a pretty nice multiplier from that because that's 3, 6, 9 to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, right? 24 added in. And then you also get the 3 base. So that's 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. And you could potentially even grab like Shroud of False Death, so 36. Which is a lot of additional multiplier that you can get just for healing yourself. And I think that's where the life on kill comes in, because they're trying to give you some way to heal yourself to activate the nourishment effect so that you're getting that bonus, and that will essentially do that for you. But you want a better way than the life on kill. You want like some life on hit or some other way to heal yourself, not life on kill. That's poopy. Then we have the special effect. So the special effect is your maximum vigor is increased by 50%. Let's stop right there, not go any further. your maximum vigor is increased by 50%. Well, it does actually increase your maximum vigor by 50%, exactly as stated. The problem is that it doesn't really function properly within the game. So even though it will actually increase your maximum vigor, we've noticed that through testing, like with Rod of Kepeleke and things like that multiply damage based on maximum resource, it doesn't really seem to be giving you the multiplicative damage bonus. But it is giving you a huge 50% vigor increase, which can be used for things like meeting the minimum requirements for Banished Lord's Talisman, as an example, which wants 275 primary resource to give you a free overpower in your next kill. So if you were like slacking on, vigor, you could potentially throw that in just to get a little bit of extra vigor, but you don't really want to use this for that purpose. You want to get your vigor in other places. If it worked properly, it would be absolutely insane for scaling max resource damage builds like Payback or Rod of Kepeleke, but because it just doesn't seem to be scaling properly with those effects, it doesn't really give you the damage bonus that it should be giving. As an example, 50% bonus is a lot of additional bonus. Like, say, for instance, I was sitting at 275 maximum resource. A 50% bonus for 275 is 137.5 maximum resource. And if you take 137.5 and you multiply that times 3, you get a 412.5% multiplier added into the way that your Kepeleke works. But it's not giving that bonus because the damage just doesn't seem to change at all with the addition of this ring. It seems to be something bugged in the way that it's giving you resource. It also has an effect of, and killing an enemy grants you 7 vigor, which is absolutely trash, because by the time you increase your vigor to like a ridiculously high value, again, utilizing the calculator to show how terrible this item is, let's assume that you've got around like 275 vigor. Well, if you divide that by 7, even at its maximum value, it's going to take you 39 kills to restore all of your vigor, and that just doesn't make any sense. 39 kills is a lot of kills to restore your vigor. Maybe if it was a higher value, like per kill, or maybe if it was like a different thing other than killing the enemy, but it's 7 per kill. I mean, yeah, you can kill a lot of monsters in a relatively short period of time, but you're also fighting bosses a lot, which you don't really kill hardly anything, except for maybe like 1 or 2 ads that pops up now and then, and it's essentially a moot point and gives you like no benefit for the most part as you're using this ring. Another effect that it has is while you have ferocity, your poisoning effects deal their damage across 33% of their normal duration. Now, on the surface, this sounds kind of cool. Like, it does sound kind of neat. But with a little bit of math, it proves to be actually kind of terrible. And let me see if I can explain this as best I can. I've actually kind of written this down, and I want to kind of go over this with you guys and talk about the math on this. So first off, let's talk about various scenarios and how this works. And you can actually see it happen on the tooltip, by the way. So before we get into this, if you take a look at my ability, you'll notice that it says Touch of Death, poisoning over 9 seconds. If I put the ring on, you'll see that it clearly says Touch of Death, poisoning over 3 seconds. So it's a direct 66% reduction in the overall duration, but it doesn't decrease the damage. So the damage stays the same, but the duration decreases. Now, there's reasons why this is not really the greatest, and it has to do with a handful of pieces of equipment, abilities, and other things that work within the game. First off is the Devourer itself, which offers an ability called, well, I can say what the passive is. It actually does have a passive name. It's the passive called Exalted Devourer. And the Exalted Devourer offers this. It says, while the Devourer is active, if a non-boss enemy, so any enemy, including elites, remaining life becomes poisoned, they die instantly. So in other words, if the entire bar fills up with damage over time, execute it, right? There's also the Shattered Vow, and the Shattered Vow also does the same thing, except it also works against bosses. So if the monster's HP, if the boss's HP fills up entirely with dot damage, execute it, right? This is actually kind of insane and allows you to stack multiple poison dots on the target, and the more poison dots you stack, the better this effect gets, to the point where having a ring like this that reduces the duration of the poison effects is actually anathema to exactly what you're trying to achieve. You're not trying to like use your poison damage to kill the boss really fast. You're trying to fill the boss's bar up with poison damage to cause him to get executed.
Mr. Goody Two Shoes, Mr. Goody Two Shoes. Ginger Evil Mentor here. Why bother farming when you can go to MMOEXP.com and simply purchase your items in gold? GGM would have you farm the items. What a pathetic being. Use code GEM Ginger Evil Mentor for 6% off your entire purchase. And don't tell Ginger Gaming Mentor that I was here.
And so if you're trying to utilize Shattered Vow or you're trying to utilize the Devourer's effect, I would strongly recommend that you do not use the Ring of the Midday Hunt, because the shorter poison durations is going to directly cut the ability to use that execute function. It's just not going to happen very often at all. And when it does happen, the monster's going to be pretty much dead already anyway. Now, moving on from the Shattered Vow and the Devourer, there is also another thing that is kind of working against the way that this ring functions as well, and that is Noxious Resonance. So Noxious Resonance says that your critical strikes cause your poisoning on an enemy to burst, dealing 100% of the total poisoning instantly to them and 20% of it to its surrounding enemies before removing the poisoning effect from the primary target. This means that the more poisoning damage you have on the target when you crit, the better the explosion is and the more it multiplies. To give you an example, let's imagine that I had a really large poison effect on the target. So let's say I was able to stack up to 50 million poison damage. And I know that the multiplier on this doesn't quite work that way, but 1,458%, let's just run it as a percentage just for dramatic sake. So plus 1,458%. Which means that we're going to get a crazy 779 million, which is close to a billion, right? Now, if we're attacking the targets with smaller duration poisons, we're probably not going to be able to stack as high or get as many multipliers running as we would normally with a longer poison duration. On top of this, there's going to be less overlap between other poisons. As an example, as you can clearly see, Toxic Skin right now has a duration of 7 seconds. And it also has an additional duration of 11 seconds down at the bottom with the other modifiers. If I put the ring on, it now suddenly becomes 4 seconds and 2 seconds. Touch of Death now becomes 3 seconds, and my Devourer's poisoning effects are going down to a total of 2 seconds. Which means that it's going to be a lot more difficult to stack multiple poison effects together and then explode them on the target. Which means that having this ring on is probably going to lower my overall damage from Noxious Resonance by making it so that I can stack 50 million poisons to only stacking 1 poison at a time. There's also the possibility that the extremely short duration of the poisons can also potentially stop Noxious Resonance from working at all, because in a certain way, because the poisons are now so short, with only 2 seconds duration on some of them, that there's a very good chance you might not crit before you have the opportunity to actually, hit that poison. So for instance, you kind of want to stack as much poison damage as you can and then crit and you get big explosions. But if your poisons are only 2 seconds, you only have a 2-second window to apply a crit to actually cause the explosion. And if you don't cause a crit within that 2 seconds, then you've just lost the opportunity. You just lost the opportunity to get any damage out of it at all. So you're no longer multiplying the poison damage, and then it's just applying blandly as a direct poison effect. Overall, I can't highly recommend this ring for just about any build except for one. Now, there is one build that takes advantage of short poison durations, and this is actually the Touch of Death build. So Touch of Death has a infection that lasts for 9 seconds. It's the way that this works. When you get this infection that lasts for 9 seconds, you attack the target, and the target is then poisoned for 9 seconds. You can clearly see this as in the video, and over those 9 seconds, eventually the monster is going to hatch a swarm. And you can clearly see this swarm is now attacking the target. If you have Touch of Death set up with the Midday Hunt ring, you can get more swarms through this effect because you're now going to reduce the infection time from 9 seconds to 3 seconds. Think about like an evil virus that now has a much shorter incubation period. And you can see that my swarm spawned quicker because I was using the Midday Hunt ring. And this is essentially how the only way that I can see right now that the Midday Hunt ring is actually slightly beneficial, because in this particular case, you're utilizing it to get a much faster incubation time on your Touch of Death. And if I get like multiple here, let's get multiple training dummies. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the passive. So let me go ahead and grab this passive real quick. So we're going to grab the one that turns it into a core skill, and I'm going to kind of show you what I mean in terms of this. So if I attack 1, 2, and of course I ran out of vigor, 3, 4, and I can very quickly get 3 pestilent swarms, or rather the Touch of Death swarms, going at any given time. It's much, much easier to spawn them, much faster to spawn them, right? And this would actually work very well with the Craze of the Dead God, because the Craze of the Dead God is, again, offering a option. I don't know if I got a Craze of the Dead God in here. I might have it on one of my other characters. But that one also gives you the ability to infect the target. And since this is going to make it so that you have faster infections and more swarm spawning, you could potentially use that to your benefit. Now, how would you use that to your benefit? Because you can only have 3 swarms active at any given time. Well, the way that you would use this to your benefit is you would use the aspect that causes them to explode when you get a second one, or a fourth one, essentially. And that is called the aspect of insatiable. Kills extend the duration of your active Touch of Death swarms by 0.2 seconds. When a swarm is replaced early, it bursts for 240% or up to 300% of the damage it would have done. So in this particular case, with this particular ring, you can increase the number of swarms that you have active on the screen and using them to get the explosions, which would then do massive amounts of damage. So you're not actually going to be using this to get a massive amount of poisoning damage, but what you are going to be using this for is just simply to get more swarms. The more swarms you have, the better. And that's going to give you a lot of additional damage in terms of like popping multiple swarms on the monsters like pus blisters. Now, to give you some examples of how the damage changes, I've got some examples here for you where I've done the math already for you. So if you're doing, say, 10,000 poison damage over 6 seconds, you're going to be doing about 1666 poison damage per second. If you're doing 10,000 poison damage with the ring, your now 6 seconds has been brought down to 2.04 seconds, and you're going to be doing 4,902 damage per second instead. But it's only going to be over 2.4 seconds, and it still translates out to the same amount of poison damage. Nothing has really changed. It just ticks a little bit faster, but it's still the same amount of damage. Now, in the case of the poison damage at 2.04 seconds, if you apply it as fast as you possibly can to try and stack the poison damage as high as you can possibly stack it, you can only attack, like if you were attacking, say, 2.77 attacks per second, they'll throw back to Diablo 2, you can get 5.65 poison dots per basically period of 2.04 seconds, which means that you're going to get a total of 56,500 poison damage on the target. However, the problem with this is that that's not really a lot, right? Like that's kind of a poopy amount. Considering that if I'm using a different build, like if I'm not using the ring, I can attack within that same 6 seconds, stack my poison damage a lot higher with the same 2.77 attack rate, which is 16.62 attacks in the 10-second period, which is 166,200 damage. Now, the difference is not much. Because technically, if you multiply this out by the same number, and let me just do this real quick. So if we take 10 and we divide that by 2.04, 2.04, we get 4.9 blah, 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 right? And then we multiply that times 56,500, we should end up with basically the same amount of damage. Of course, I did something wrong in the math here. Hold on. Thanks. No, it's not 10. My bad. It's 6. So 6 divided by 2.04. I was doing 10 earlier because it was easier, but then I wanted to use a more realistic example, so I switched to 6. I got 6 stuck in my brain. So we end up with 2.9411, blah, 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 right? So when we multiply that by 56,500, and you'll see that we're still doing 166,176. So it's very, very close here. We're still doing basically the same amount of damage no matter what, right? But the difference is that in example A, where we have a longer duration, we're getting more poison ticks, which can be exploited by Noxious Resonance, Shattered Vow, the Devourer, and basically all of our multipliers. In option B, which is with the ring, we're getting less poison damage ticks, but more direct damage, essentially. So it's kind of like converting your poisoning damage into a direct damage, which is not really what you want. Most, if not all, of the poisoning effects tend to do better when they have a longer duration versus a shorter one. They stack better with a longer duration, they overlap better with a longer duration, and on top of that, they just simply seem to work better with multipliers on a longer duration. The only 2 builds that I can think of off the top of my head that take advantage of this ring and actually use it properly are a Touch of Death build, where you're literally just trying to maximize the total number of infestations that you have, which is a interesting play, or B, a poison build that is not using Noxious Resonance, that is not using the Devourer, and is not using Shattered Fist. So this would be a poison build that is not trying to utilize any of the existing methods to scale poison damage, and instead is just trying to scale poison damage like willy-nilly off of like anything that they can manage to get additional damage off of. And if that's the case, maybe there is a build out there for this ring, but I would not use it with any of the traditional poison methods. Do not use it with Noxious Resonance. Do not use it with Shattered Vow, and I would definitely probably not use it with a Devourer either, because none of them seem to work well with the reduction in the duration. And the reduction in the duration is really tragic because, I mean, the durations on these are already very short. Like, I mean, you look at the Toxic Skin with a 7-second duration. That's already very short. And when you put the ring on, it goes from 7 to, and of course I have to be outside of town to get my ferocity stacks, because the duration decrease doesn't happen unless you are using ferocity stacks. That's important. And as you can see, now my poison duration is only 2 seconds on Toxic Skin, or 4 seconds on the Toxic Skin poisoning is increased damage. It's, I just don't know exactly how to think about it in terms of explaining just how bad it is across the board for like how most of these poison abilities work. Nourishment is probably the best thing on this ring, to be perfectly honest. And even with like a maxed out triple greater affixed nourishment, like at like 8 ranks, I still don't think it's worth putting on for just about any build. Except for Touch of Death. Touch of Death is the only one that I can really see getting any kind of benefit from this right now. In fact, I would like to eventually theorycraft like a full Touch of Death build using this ring to see how much I could maximize the infestation swarms. Probably tying this together with the Craze of the Dead God gloves, which also offer additional infestations. And getting the infestations down to 3 seconds, I could imagine that you could get a rather large number of these swarms popping up at any given time. The interesting thing here, though, is that you don't necessarily need this ring to do that. So, believe it or not, you can use Noxious Resonance for the same purpose. So if you have Noxious Resonance and you're utilizing Noxious Resonance, you can have Noxious Resonance pull that infestation off. And if Noxious Resonance pulls the infestation off, then you get the swarm anyway. And quicker, too. Which is also something to note. So not only are you getting the infestations at a very fast rate, like you could potentially set up a 100% Noxious Resonance build, like 100% crit, and you could just simply pull every infestation off as soon as you plant it, which would probably be a hell of a lot faster than going with this method. And then you could save that aspect for a better slot. I really wish they had changed it to increases the duration, because honestly, increased duration is so much better than decreasing the duration when it comes to poison. And they added so many fun items and so many fun ways to take advantage of increased poison duration, but then didn't give us increased poison duration. We don't even have a tracker glyph on Spiritborn, which sucks. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. That's how I feel about that. If you want to farm this item, you can farm this item. Let me pull this up for you. So if you're looking to find this particular item, let me bring in the Midday Hunt. On Diablo 4.life, we have a target farming tool. And in the target farming tool, it'll tell you that it comes from Echo of Varshan. So if you're looking to farm this one, you definitely head over to Echo of Varshan to get your hands on it. If you're looking for, like, what do you want to find on this particular item, I mean, the special effect is useless, the 7 Vigor. So that's the only thing that rolls on the special effect, so who cares? It's a terrible special effect, and even if it was a 1, I would still use it if it was like a quad, if I was going to use it. And the attack speed GA is really nice, and the nourishment GA is really nice. The life on kill doesn't matter and could honestly be the worst roll ever, and I probably wouldn't even care about it. The movement speed after killing an enemy is also kind of terrible too, but at least it's moderately useful if you're using the brilliance. Key passive, passive, which gives you a multiplier based on your movement speed. But you're really just looking for the GA on the attack speed and the GA on the nourishment if you want to try and use this at all. The other two are just mediocre at best. And even the Vigor return is absolutely useless. It's a absolutely terrible ring, in my opinion, and you probably shouldn't use it. That's what I'm going to leave this video off as. So you spent 26 minutes for me to tell you it's terrible. Congratulations. As always, I appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy deep diving on these items. And as always, keep watching.